All right. So, Amanda, thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it. To get started, let's go ahead and just introduce you and tell us a little bit about you and your practice.
Sure. Okay. So I started my practice this year. I was a school counselor for 20 years, and I've done therapy, child therapy, adolescent therapy, and family therapy on and off for the last 13 years.
Hmm.
But recently left the school system to do this full time. My main focus is actually adolescent girls, so preteen and teen girls. Although I have a ton of experience with young children, most of my career was working with young kids. So I see kids really any age. The youngest I work with right now is age 5, and then I also work with adult women. But my focus has been mostly females, but I do see young boys.
Okay.
But I'm in Deale, Maryland, in South County, and I have an office now in Annapolis, Maryland as well. Although right now everything's telehealth, so um,
Right. So it doesn't really matter where we're located. We can reach you anyway. Awesome. So I know that, like you said, your focus is mainly the preteens and the teens,
yeah.
especially for girls. So let's go ahead and talk about what are some of the main stressors that we see affecting teens and preteens?
So we can't sort of overlook the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. So things are
Mm-hmm.
different now, and the stressors are different right now than they were before. So we're sort of in this capsule of time right now. We don't know when it will end, but sort of pre-COVID, as we may call it at some point, the main stressors are, honestly, and people may not like to hear this, the main stressors are parents.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
8-year-old would agree with that.
especially for teens, because the teen brain is making this huge shift. So between, once you hit adolescence, between childhood and adulthood, it's a very short time frame. And so the adolescent brain is formed in a way and is changing in a way that is sort of practicing being an adult.
Mm-hmm.
So part of that brain shift is moving away from parents, and that you see
Oh,
this in all animals. You see it in the animal world. So adolescence is kind of like toddlerhood. It's like a no, mommy, me do, right? They're
mm-hmm.
practicing to be adults. And if we
It's
don't
not
teach,
as cute.
yeah, it's not as cute. And they may not be as cute as they were when they were little, but um so the parent is sometimes the enemy, and that's not always true. Um but they can cause a lot of stress because their brain is telling them that the parent's the enemy. And it's actually, we know this from the neural structures of the brain.
Right. I mean, I still like to think that I'm closer to a teenager than an adult. Uh, Probably not true, but I do remember being a teen and thinking in my head that I want so badly to be an adult. I want so badly to make my own decisions. I know what I need. I want the autonomy. And looking back at that now, I understand the emotions behind that. But gosh, our decision making at that age is still kind of crappy.
Right. And so that's the other thing is teenage years, the switches in the brain is also a time of exploration, risk taking. It's a very dangerous time, but it's also a very creative time. Creativity just is blown out the door. But we have to allow our teens to make decisions, make some adult type decisions, because if they do leave us and go off to
Mhm.
college or go off to a career, they don't have the safety of mom and dad or uncle or aunt or whoever's raising them anymore. They're out on their own. So if we sort of shelter them and don't allow them to make mistakes, they're going to make mistakes, but they're going to be an adult.
Right. One thing I even try and instill in my kids now, and I remember my mom doing the same, is saying, I know you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And I'm here for that, but I need to know when you make a mistake so I can help you,
That's great.
guide through it. Yeah, and it's hard, but I mean, even as adults, I think we still make mistakes. And it's only natural. I think sometimes that initial parental response is the anger, though, when our kids make a big mistake. So instead of getting angry, kind of, would you say like it's to be expected?
Yeah, but you have to really be intentional. You have to really sit down and talk with your significant other, or make a decision on your own if you're a single parent, that I cannot freak out, because
Right.
that is going to push the teens away, and that's why there is a disconnect. You have to fake it. You're like, okay, well, I need to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Have your freak out and come back, because you want your teen to be able to tell you if, they're at a party and it's dangerous and they need you to pick them up,
Mm.
or some creepy guy is trying to talk to me online, or, I just got in the car and realized the person driving is drunk. You need to be
Right.
able to tell them these things. You need them to be able to tell you these things, but if you freak out, they will not tell you because they don't want to disappoint you,
Hmm.
and they're already freaked out enough. So if you freak out, they sort of already know, okay, well, if I tell mom, she's just going to freak out, and I don't like that.
Right. So is it also important to just kind of let our kids know, especially in these formative years, that no matter what you do, I'm always on your side?
Yeah, you have to have that conversation with them. Like, I promise not to freak out. I might not like what's happening. I'll always be here. I will always listen to whatever it is that is happening and love you no matter what. And I'll support you. And I'm going to try my you can say, I'm going to try my very best not to freak
Right.
out.
And now on the other end of the spectrum, we also don't want to be their best friend though, right? Like I hear that a lot. Like it's not our job to be their best friend, it's our job to be their parent. So there is that balance to find. Do you have advice for really finding that balance with our teens?
So it's, I use the sort of adage of connect and redirect.
Mm-hmm.
So first you want to connect with them and talk to them. If they've told you something like, oh, I'm really hungover. I was really drunk last night. I did these drugs, whatever. Like, you need to connect with them, however, and say, okay, I understand you're feeling pretty crappy, and this is, I know how that feels. If you know how that feels, and this is hard, and I'll help you through it. And then wait till they're feeling better, and then talk about the boundaries. Okay, last night you broke the rules. What do you think we should do? You need to include them in the conversation, but you still have to have that boundary. Not necessarily consequences at this age. You implement these consequences when they're younger in hopes that when they're older, it's really more of a teaching, right?
Right.
You're trying to teach them how to become adults. You're not going to say you're grounded and take the phone away. And I know parents don't like to hear that, but you take the phone away, you take their lifeline.
Right, exactly. And then they feel that isolation, and then that anger and that resentment kind of continues. Um, oh gosh, I was going to say something and I don't remember what it was. My brain still doesn't work. I feel like I still have baby brain, and my youngest is 5.
I still have
Um,
baby brain. It's like
I'm like, does it
baby
ever
brain
come back?
damage.
Yeah. Oh, no, I know what I was going to say. So it sounds like we shouldn't try to have that teaching moment or that teaching conversation in the heat of the moment when that crisis or that mistake is occurring.
You
Just be,
connect with them and you listen.
right. So be satisfied that they're coming to you. And
Right.
then once emotions are less tense and everything is kind of calmed down, then go ahead and have that teaching moment.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So other stressors besides parents. Let's move on. Let's move on from us being the problem.
So in today's day and age, obviously social pressures are much more intense. I'm 43 years old, so it's a little bit, it was way different when I was younger. We didn't have social media. Um, so social pressures are intense because you have social pressures in school and you have them online.
Hmm.
And you have to keep up with appearances or keep up with the group, not only face to face, but also on your social media or whatever.
Right.
So there's just much more intense social pressures, but also academically, there can be social pressures like the academic social pressure of having good academics or being able to go to the right school or have the right house or those kinds of things. There's a lot of that kind of pressure today.
Hmm.
Um, they're just much more intense. And
Right.
I don't know if I think we can understand and relate, but for me personally, I can't because I didn't have that.
Right. I think I kind of in high school is when social media was kind of like really gaining popularity for me. So like I feel like I have some sort of like understanding of that, but still when I'm talking with teens and they're so obsessed with their online image, it's hard to get them to realize that their online image is not nearly as important as they think it is because to them it's everything.
Well, they were born into it, and so how can it not be important? It's been
I
a part of their
know.
life since they were, some of our kids since they were in kindergarten. Not social media, but computers and
Right.
the web.
So I mean, do you think it's important for them to have that healthy relationship with social media? Like we shouldn't just take it away from them because obviously it's kind of their main form of communication. But how do we set those, how do we create a healthy mindset, I guess, around social media use with them?
Yeah, I think you start when they're a little, the preteen age. That's when you start talking to them about it and you monitor it, you know. So
Right.
when if you decide to let them have it at whatever age in middle school, you're monitoring at that point. They're not autonomous at all at that age. You're talking to them about it. You're saying, "Hey, show me some of those TikTok videos. Let me look at them." And you try to keep that open mind and not freak out. But like for example, my daughter has done these TikTok videos and there's bad words, and I say, "Absolutely not. You're not going to have any bad words on there." And I don't hide them from bad language, but I say when you're young and you use bad language, it's just ugly, right? It just doesn't.
Right. That's what I tell my kids too. I'm like, they're just like there's adult drinks and adult activities, there's adult words. And when you're an adult and you know how to properly use these and you know your audience, then it's okay. But right now you're a kid, so those aren't kid-friendly words.
Yeah. So you just have to really, keep that conversation open and start the boundary setting when they're younger and have a lot of conversations around it and be very open with them. I tell my preteens, like, one of the issues with social media is sexual predators. Like, that's a
Mhm.
big issue. And they need, even though it's scary and you don't want to talk about it, you need to talk about that.
Right.
Or sexting or sexual pictures. Like, it's a reality. Kids are doing it.
It is, and it's a dangerous reality because I've had this discussion with teens in my life too. I don't have teens yet. I'm scared. But but I've had that discussion that, once those are out there, they're out there forever.
Yeah.
And also it's your body's not something to be ashamed of, but it's something to be taken care of and something to be protected and nurtured and not just given out to everybody. And I think one common misconception that I think they're starting to understand is not true is that with things like Snapchat, it doesn't disappear. I mean, yeah, I know it goes away after, however many seconds, but you can screenshot it and then it's there forever. So like it or not, I mean, I know kids are going to make these mistakes, but again, I think it goes back to reiterating the fact that if they make these mistakes and they send these images that, then they panic over, like you can always come to us as your parents and we'll help
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, and every parent's different. Every parent's going to have different rules and regulations, and I think that's fine. You have to make that decision.
Right.
And I sort of promote, okay, maybe allow one social media app and only let them have a certain amount of friends that you can see, and you have access to it. Um, but I can't tell parents how to raise their kids. Everyone's different. Everyone has different values.
Of course. And I think it goes back to making those values known when they're young so that they know their expectations. As far as monitoring social media, that's something that we should probably make the kids aware of, right? So it doesn't come off as a like, oh my gosh, you're spying on me. More of a, these are my devices. I'm allowing you to use these devices. So I have access to everything you have access to.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Um,
kind of like having a contract up front. Okay, you can have this. These are the rules. I can access it whenever I need to access it. Um, if there becomes an issue where you figure out how to not let me access it, then we take that away. You're not necessarily taking all communication away, but you can take certain things away at a time. But you
Perfect.
have to sort of you do have to monitor it, and maybe not
Right.
every day, but you have to keep up on it. I know there are some parents that are very lenient, and in that fact, I would say no, you do need to monitor.
Right. Yeah. I've heard a lot of parents say, I feel guilty for monitoring the social media use. I feel like I'm spying and it's not spying, it's safety.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, because again, it goes back to their brains are not fully formed yet. Like,
right.
I don't know if my brain is fully formed yet. Learning as we go. So let's touch on the academic pressures. I've heard a lot of teens really stressing over, or even preteens. I mean, sometimes I've heard kids as young as like sixth and seventh grade stressing about what college they're going to get into. And I kind of just want to be like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and so it's hard. I mean, is that internal or is that coming from the parents?
Mhm.
So that's another big
Or is
issue.
it coming from the schools too?
Right, right. Or from the peers. You need to make sure as a parent that you see your child and make sure that you're not projecting onto them what you want. Uh,
Hmm.
it could be that maybe your child isn't wanting to go to college. Are you imposing that on them, or have you already decided that you will impose that on them, that there is no choice? But that's conversation you have with them. Um, but yeah, there definitely seems to be more pressure with that, and I think it's because the way our world is now. Most of our parents did go to college. We sort of have this mindset that if you don't go to college, you won't be successful, which I don't believe.
Hmm.
And there is a lot of pressure at schools. They do push college, college, college. And if your parents went to college, even without them saying anything, there's still sort of that pressure because they went.
Right.
It's sort of that unwritten or unspoken pressure. Um, so kids really need a lot of different role models in their lives, not just college educated role models, but
That's
lots
a
of
smart
different,
idea. Right. Various walks of life.
yeah, different
Some of the
models.
most successful people have not been college educated.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's sad sometimes to see that domino effect in preteens going, well, if I don't do good in school right now, or if I get a bad grade right now, I'm not going to get in a good college. And if I don't get into a good college, I'm not going to have a good job. And if I don't have a good job, then I can't support a family. I can't have a house. And you're like, you're 12. It's okay.
Right.
Yeah, so those pressures are hard. Now I know there's good stress and there's bad stress. So obviously some sort of pressure to perform academically is good. I mean, we want our kids to get decent grades. But I think it's also that reality that not every kid is going to be a straight A student, and that's okay too.
Yeah, I mean, and being a straight A student in middle school is much different than being a straight A student your senior year. I'm pretty laid back. I'm a parent who I've gone and not even looked at report cards. I mean, there was one time I forgot to even open them. Just don't, you just can't put, you have to really not put the pressure on, and you think you're not pressuring,
Hmm.
but you are. If you're like, oh, let me see your report card. Oh, you got a B. What happened with that B?
Right,
All A's, but what happened with the B? And then you're calling the teacher and asking the teacher why they get the B. So you have to be very careful about how you sort of react.
right. I kind of think of it like almost as put yourself in their shoes. Like school is their job, and if their boss was constantly over their shoulder going, "You can do better, you can do better, you can do better," eventually you're going to shut down and be like, "Actually, I can't do anything at all because I'm so stressed from the pressure that I can't perform anymore."
Yeah.
And I
And
think we've all felt like that as adults too in jobs sometimes.
yeah. And I also talk to kids a lot about grades. If you have straight A's, did you really learn? You know, because
Right.
maybe this is way really easy. That's hard for kids to accept
Right.
because they
Yeah,
take
I don't let my daughter like retake things sometimes. She'll be like, "Well, I got 7 out of 10 and I really know that I could have gotten those other ones right." And I'm like, "7 out of 10 is fine on that quiz. It's
yeah.
okay. Like, you know what you did wrong. It's fine. We talked about it. You really don't need to stress over retaking it."
Mhm.
Yeah, academic pressure is hard. It's a
It
hard
is.
one.
And it
Yeah.
depends where you live and what your community is like. Um, every community is different, but if you're in a community where there's a lot of high performing kids, there's a lot more pressure. If you're in a community where it's more diverse with lots of different kids and different levels of learning, it's different there, right?
Right, right. Now I've had discussions even with my kids. They don't mean it bad because I mean, I think when she was in second grade, she started to notice, well, so and so in class only got this, and everyone else did this. And I, very young, would say things like, well, everyone learns differently, or everyone excels at different things, and that's okay. That's nothing to be ashamed of. And I think that's something that we should probably be passing on to our kids too. It's okay if you don't excel in this area. You do excel in these areas.
Yeah, and I sort of say you can't be the best at everything. That there's many different types of smarts.
Yeah.
Some people have interpersonal skills that they're really strong with. Some people have sports skills that they're really strong with. Some people have music skills. You can't be the best at everything. Your brain's just not capable of that. And school is sort of just one facet of learning. It doesn't really touch on like the arts as much as it probably should, or interpersonal skills as much as it should. So I try to teach kids like that's just the academic piece. Like there's lots of other ways you can be smart.
Right, exactly. So, talking about these stressors, how have they either been amplified or how have they changed now during this time of social distancing?
Um, So from working with my girls, it depends on the girl. They're all different, but during this time of COVID and being, self-isolated, if the kid is, because some aren't, some are out socializing.
Right.
Let's say that they are home and they're not hanging out with their friends. It goes sort of against the brain structures, right? It goes against the social piece that's so strong in the way the brain is forming during the adolescent period. But from what I'm seeing with my girls, first off, a lot less stress. I'm seeing a lot less stress in my girls because they're not in school.
Right.
So some of my girls who have a lot of anxiety, the anxiety has really decreased.
Mm-hmm.
My introverted girls are fine. My extroverted girls, that those are the ones that are struggling more. Um, but we're all struggling. It's not just, us as adults, we're struggling too because we're in the middle of a trauma response. Like not being able to do the things you normally can do and not having a plan on how to stop it or to change it is kind of the definition of trauma.
Right.
And so we have to recognize that we're in the middle of a trauma and we're going to respond to it. And we're not going to respond to it in great ways all the time. And depending on the developmental age, we'll have different responses.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, surprisingly enough, most of my girls are doing pretty well. The ones that aren't doing well are the ones that have families that aren't functioning well, right? If you're at home with a toxic family, you're not doing well.
Right.
If you're at home with a family that's loving and caring and you get along with them, you're probably doing pretty well.
Yeah, we were actually talking with a neighbor, and we noticed that now that our schedule is not so filled, we're actually enjoying life more. We're not running from thing to thing.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, I mean, yeah, we're getting along well as a family. Um, I mean, of course, the kids are fighting because they're kids and that's what siblings do. One thing I did kind of want to ask you about is, parents giving themselves grace. Like you said, we're all in a time of trauma. And for the most part, I think most of us are doing really well with our families and supporting our kids. But we're not miracle workers and we're not perfect and we're not robots. So, these parents who get really upset with themselves because, hey, I snapped at my kid today, or I yelled at my teen, or, I broke down in tears and my kid didn't know how to fix it. I'm a bad mom because I did this. What would you say to them in that moment?
You know, Again, we're all in a trauma response. And, there was a really great research piece done after 9/11, and I think they took subjects from, right down in the middle of the event, people who they knew ran away from the towers, and they brought them in for a study. And they found the majority of them did not develop PTSD, which they were very surprised. But the people that did not develop PTSD were ones who ran home to a family that was loving, that had a support at home.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, our kids are going to get yelled at. I've yelled at my kids, and it's not going to be easy, but they are going to get through it and they are going to be resilient because they have a loving family at home that
Right.
I think most of these families that we see online, there's got to be a stability if they have enough agency to like be a part of a group of people who advocate for mental health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you care about your mental health enough to like talk to other women about your mental health, you're
Right.
probably doing pretty good.
Great. That's awesome. So we're all doing fine. Um, so what are a couple ways do you think that we can kind of support, especially our preteens and our teens in this time? I mean, they're struggling. They're not seeing their friends. How can we support them with that?
I had some notes. I mean, the first thing is validating. When they say whatever it is, like they're screaming at you, like, this sucks, I can't take it anymore. Like, I know it really sucks. Like,
Mm-hmm.
now we have to be at home and we can't see our friends. It's hard. I can't even imagine what you're feeling like. I hang out with my friends sometimes, but you hang out with your friends all the time. I just can't imagine how hard this is for you. You're
Right.
validating their feelings. It's really, really important. The other thing is because we are in a trauma state, structure is very important. that is very healing. So teens don't always have great structure right now, and I see that, like they're staying up all night, they don't have any type of time schedule. It's really important to have a time schedule and create some boredom in your life. Like even if they're staying up all night, they need to have a regular time of going to sleep and getting up. They need to have a schedule of when they're going to eat, when they're going to call their friends, when they're going to do their schoolwork.
Mm-hmm.
When you get into this area where you don't know what time it is or what day it is, that's not good.
Right. It's disorienting.
Yeah. And that's when you start to sort of dissociate and become depressed and anxious. So having a schedule and having structure is super important right now. Having boundaries and predictability, so making the boundaries clear with your child. No, you may not hang out with any friends, or if you do allow it, okay, you may hang out with one friend on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to be very clear what the boundaries are. It's the other thing is moving. The body needs to move.
Yeah.
Not moving your body, it gets really confused. The brain gets confused and it's like, what in the heck is going on? Because most of our kids are used to moving. They're used to being in school and having PE. And if the body stops moving all of a sudden, it has this response like, whoa, are we in danger?
Yeah.
So especially for athletes, I've had to really talk to my girls who are athletes, because athletes, they're training every day pretty intensely. So they need to have an intense workout schedule because that's what their body is used to.
Right. Right. That makes sense. So really tailoring your child's day to what they're used to as much as
Yeah.
possible.
So if
Got
they're
it.
athletes and they just left a season, they need to create some sort of workout schedule or running schedule. Um, Following rules and keeping things boring. Again, like I said before, like if it means making recipes or baking, things where you have to follow step-by-step instructions are really good right now.
Yeah.
And then organizing the interior of the home. You don't want the house to be chaos, which I know mine is. It's crazy chaos, but I try my best to at least keep like one room organized,
Mm-hmm.
because you want it to be you want to maintain some sort of structure inside, like a place for school, a place.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. We try and keep at least in our home, we try and keep the kitchen and the bedrooms functional because
Yeah.
the kitchen seems to be like our communal gathering space. And then the bedrooms, even my kids who are, like I said, are younger, they notice, they say, I feel better when my room is put together. So we actually went as far as like to rearrange their furniture while we were
Yeah.
home, just make it different.
Yeah.
But they do find that if their space, it doesn't have to be perfectly spotless, but they find that if their space is more in order, they themselves feel a little more in
Yeah.
order.
And the other thing for teens, it's such a creative time. The more like crafts and creative things you can do for them is very therapeutic. Go on Pinterest and find some fun ideas. Today we painted the windows, but that's something that teens really enjoy. So if you can get some supplies and like really encourage them to do artwork or sing if they're a singer, or do music, it's really therapeutic.
Right. Anything creative.
Mhm.
Awesome. So I think we touched a little bit on this, especially with parents not freaking out. But what are some other ways that we can really ensure that we're keeping those lines of communication open with our teens?
Yeah, it kind of goes along the same line of trying to remain calm when you can. For teens, they want to be in their bedroom and they want to be away because they're they have their little pretend adult world in their bedroom.
Ah, that makes total sense. Yeah.
They're pretending that they live on their own, and they don't want to be with mom and dad because they're not a kid anymore, and their brain's telling them mom and dad are the enemy, I'm an adult. So
Right.
let them be in their own little world in their room, and don't shame them for that. I think parents are like, why aren't you hanging out with me? Well, because I'm over here practicing being an adult, leave me alone. um, Checking in with them, but not constantly, just, and
Mhm.
not saying, are you okay, what's going on, what's wrong. You just want to go in and be like, hey, if you ever want to like do something or watch a movie, let me know. Or if you want to talk, let me know.
Right.
Or don't even ask. Just say, hey, let's go for a walk. You got to really not
Yeah.
direct questions with teens. You have to just have space with them, right?
Right.
You
That
need to
makes
be next to them.
awesome. Cool. It's kind of just inviting them in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything else you kind of wanted to add or talk about?
I think right now we have to give our kids a little bit more compassion, especially with online learning. It's stressful for the kids and it's stressful for the adults. I think depending on, your capacity as an adult to navigate the platforms online, you may be doing okay. Depending on the age of the child, you may be doing okay. The teens, for the most part, can probably navigate things pretty well.
Probably better than last.
But you just want to have a lot of compassion and sort of like give them a little bit of a break on school. Like, we're in the middle of a pandemic for it's
Right.
one semester out of their whole lives.
Right.
Don't push so much.
Right.
Um, don't take things personal when they attack you and they say mean things. This is,
Kind of like the toddlers again.
yeah, this is just brain trying to, you know, be be autonomous and be on their own. And
Mhm.
so just try not to take it personally because you'll just be miserable, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Um, yeah, I think that's it. And tell them you're sorry. Like if you have a freak out, you say, I'm sorry. This is stressful for me.
Right. So be honest and be real.
Yeah.
I love it. That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for answering all these questions. I think it's really helpful, and I think it's nice to know that you're a professional and you're still you're struggling too. We all
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
So it's great to know that we're not alone.
Yeah.
Our teens are not alone.
No, no. And, if you're concerned, reach out to someone, reach out to, a teacher, reach out to someone that that is in mental health, reach out to me, even if you just want a question.
Hmm.
Because sometimes you need someone to tell you, like, your kid's fine. So,
Yeah,
or, oh my goodness, they really need to see somebody.
right. But either way, there's answers.
Yeah.
Awesome. So again, you have two offices, one in Deal, one in Annapolis,
Yep.
and currently you are doing telehealth.
Yep.
Okay, great. And your website again?
It's www.amandafincher.com.
Awesome. And I'll link that at the end of the video. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
All right. Take care.
Bye.